Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another week on this podcast. I'm really happy to have you here this week. Also, there is work going on across the road, so I apologize if at any time you can hear drills going. I'm hoping the mic doesn't pick up on it, but it is so loud and it's been going on for like an hour and a half, and I was waiting for it to stop, but I'm like, I need to do it now. So, today's episode is one that has been requested a lot by a few of you on Instagram, and that is how to support someone who's struggling, a guide for friends and family. So, how do we help someone who's struggling mentally, especially if they're a close friend or a family member? And how do you even bring it up without making them feel worse? And honestly, I think this topic is really important, especially in this day and age where mental health challenges are so common, but conversations about them still feel hard. And whether that's because we've never had a conversation about it, we're not used to having conversations about mental health, or if there's an overall stigma still around conversations about mental health, I do want to break that and give you all some tips and helpful practical things that you can try in your day-to-day life to help people around you or help yourself. So today we're gonna dive straight into how to support someone who's going through a tough time, practically, gently, and without overstepping. All right, so let's start with how to recognize the signs. So, honestly, sometimes people don't tell us that they're struggling. Most of the time, people don't tell you that they're struggling, and sometimes they don't even realize it themselves. I know personally, I'm someone who not battles with things, but will take more things on, take more things on, take more things on. Yes, I can handle it, I can handle it, I can handle it. And then all of a sudden, I come to a roadblock, I burn out, and that's it. When I'm in that phase of handling, I'm not actually recognizing that I'm going down a bad path, and then it just hits at one point. So, recognizing the signs of a family member, a friend, someone close to you, a colleague, even if you are open to having conversations with them, you might notice some changes like they're withdrawing from social stuff. So, if you've noticed that you've invited your friends out and they keep saying no, or they keep saying they're busy, now sometimes people are busy, especially I've had this conversation with some of my friends from high school. When we were in high school, we saw each other every day, right? That was our thing. We go to high school every day. You see each other every day. You hang out on the weekend, blah, blah, blah. Once you leave high school, everyone gets a job. People might start having more serious relationships. People don't have the time to see their friends that often, to see them all the time. So sometimes it can be, their life path is different to yours. But if you notice them to be a little bit off, plus them withdrawing from social things, that can be a good indicator that maybe something is going on. So, a big one is a friend that you invite them out, they seem really excited. They're like, yes, perfect, all good. And then a couple of days before or the day of, they pull out, they say, oh, something's come up, something. And, by all means, something might have come up, like I said before, but sometimes, and I speak about this from personal experience, I've been this person when I was in a bit of a low period. When someone would ask me to do something, I'd say, yes, this is so fun. Like, I'm going to go a couple of days before or the day of, I might be feeling low, and I've pulled out last minute. So, that could definitely be a sign of someone who might be going through something. Now, another sign could be their mood seems low, irritable, or just different. So, again, life throws different things at us, so they might just be dealing with different things. But if their mood changes, seems low, irritable, or they just seem different when you talk to them, they might be spacing out. You know, if you mention something that you've mentioned before, like, oh, your hair's not brushed at the back. I know girls talk like that, and it's not an offensive thing. If that's something you've always had with your friend and you say it now and they get really offended or quite irritated by it, that could also be a sign that maybe they're going through something. So For example, if you're talking to your friend, your best friend, your family member, your brother, your sister, whoever, and you can see they're spaced out and everything, pause what you're talking about, pause the conversation, just reach out to them and say, hey, are you okay? What are you thinking about? That can be a really nice, gentle icebreaker into a conversation that might make them feel more comfortable to open up and really share what they're going through. Okay, now this one's a little bit more personal, so it might be more for family members in case, unless of course you live with housemates and they're your friends and everything. So their sleep or eating habits have changed. Again, and I'm probably going to say this for all of them, when we are in our late teens, early 20s, and going through our 20s, loads of things change. Our sleeping habits change. We might be staying up later, we might not be sleeping enough, or we might be sleeping more than what we did in high school, and eating habits change. Especially if you've just moved out, if you're living with housemates, you now have all the freedom to eat what you want, you might be eating differently, etc., etc. So, this one is a bit more personal, but you can still keep an eye on it. Let's say if your friend keeps saying, let's go out for dinner, and you've been out for dinner for like every single night that whole week, maybe just bring up, oh, hey, like, should we cook something at home? Should we, let's search up a recipe on Instagram or TikTok and that we find really yummy. Let's go get the stuff and eat it at home. And maybe that will kind of gently ease them out of that pattern, but also it might open them up to saying, yeah, actually, I've just been, struggling with this or struggling with that. That's why I want to go out and get food. You never really know what's going on and how people handle things or cope with stress. I know that I cope with stress with eating, and when I am feeling really stressful and really anxious in my week, I do tend to want to eat out more. And, sometimes my partner will pull me up on it. Hey, you know, we've eaten out twice this week. How about we just have something at home? It does kind of open that conversation. Oh, yeah, I've actually been feeling really stressed. That's why I'm like eating out, kind of like an escape. So that's also another thing. So these changes, like I've said before, they might not mean that something is seriously wrong, but they might be gentle clues. So again, trust your gut, trust your intuition. If something feels off, you're better off asking than not. You've got nothing to lose. If you ask, hey, are you all good? Is everything okay? The worst I can say is, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I'm all good, you know, and that's the best case scenario. You're like, okay, easy. You just move on with your day. But sometimes they might stop and think, actually, no, I'm not okay. I'm glad you asked. I've been really wanting to talk about it. Now, moving on to how to start the conversation. So, now that you've noticed the signs, realized the signs, now how can we go about starting the conversation? Now, this is usually the scariest part, especially now in this day and age where we rely heavily on our phones, our computers, on different technologies to communicate with people, to have conversations with people. It can be quite hard to bring up these hard conversations and these scary conversations. So I want you to think that you don't need the perfect words. You just need to be genuine and compassionate. So if you say something like, hi, Emily, I can tell you're really anxious and I am here for you because I have searched up what anxiety is and I can help you. That is really like robotic, and if someone was to come to me like that, I would probably shut down a little bit or be like, oh, okay, this feels really formal. I'm not really into that. You know what I mean? So you could try something like, hey, I've noticed you haven't really seemed like yourself lately. I just wanted to check in. If there's anything going on, I'm here to talk, no pressure. Or even if it's someone closer to you, hi, I really care about you and I've been thinking about how you've been lately. If you ever feel like chatting, I'd love to listen. Now, again, these conversations might be hard to have in person, and you don't necessarily need to have them in person. If you feel better reaching out to them via text, via voice message, then that's perfect. Whatever makes it easier for you and easier for that person. You might be a really outgoing person, be like, oh, I'll gladly have this conversation. Your friend might be someone who doesn't really like conflict and maybe would benefit on a message rather than you coming up personally and saying that to them. Because with a message, you can look at it, think about it, and then reply. So it's really case by case basis, and really just think about what would make you most comfortable and what would make your person most comfortable. So another thing is the key is not to diagnose them or assume things. So you're not there to fix them, you're just there to hold space. Now, I saw a trend on TikTok and Instagram. I think it was a couple of months ago, but some still keep popping up. I'm not sure if you guys have, where it's like I've gone to my friend for advice, but they're trying to tell me how to fix it instead of just letting me vent. So that's what I'm talking about. Don't sit there with your mind going and say, okay, but you can do this, you can do that. If you take these steps, if you can take those actions, especially if you're in the psychology field or studying psychology, our brains do tend to think like that straight away. But let's try and take a little bit of a step back and just think, okay, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to hear everything. I'm just going to hear how they're feeling, what they want help with, and then kind of put our 2 cents in, especially starting the conversations because it already might be quite hard for someone to open up. You don't want to come in with like a strong force, like, well, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't feel like this. I'm not saying as you go on, you can't give any advice. I'm just saying at the beginning, it's probably better off to just be gentle, to ease into it. And then as you go along and they talk to you about this same topic over and over again, you might say, okay, look, well, you what's kind of come out of this? You've done the same things 3 times and had the same result. Maybe let's not do that again. And then they'd be more open to probably taking that advice on rather than if you were going to say it from the get go. Now, adding on to what I was saying, I want to talk about what support would actually look like. So, supporting someone doesn't really mean becoming their therapist, like I mentioned before. So, I made a little list about what supporting someone looks like or would feel like. So, number one, I said listening without judgment. So, like I was saying before, take a step back, listen to everything. Don't jump in and say, oh, but actually, oh, but no, oh, but if you did this. Really just listen without judgment. Be really open, be compassionate, be empathetic. You can really be a great listener. They'll open up more, you'll be able to help more, and it'll just be great in the long run, anyways. Number two, I put checking in regularly with small messages. So, depending on how severe this issue may be, you might see this person every day. You might be able to have contact with them and you can ask them in person. If if it's someone who you don't see regularly or it's something really, really big that's going on and they're kind of staying to themselves at the moment, not really reaching out to anyone, not really talking to anyone, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want help, they don't want to talk to you. It's just that they don't want to feel like they're nagging, they don't want to feel like they're being annoying, putting their problems onto everyone. So if you check in regularly with small messages like thinking of you today, or how are you today, or missing you, that can really help, especially even if they don't answer, they've still seen it, they've still acknowledged it, it might make them feel a little bit better. Now, someone might reply and be like, hey, you've messaged me 6 times, I haven't replied, get the hint, stop asking me, I'm fine, like I don't want any help. And if that's the case, then that's fine, but at least you tried, do you know what I mean? It's better than being too scared to text someone because you think you're going to step on their toes, and then afterwards then being like, you never reached out to me, you were never there for me. So, just check in. If they don't want it, they'll say so. Otherwise, they'll just accept it and it'll be like a cute, friendly little thinking of you text. Now, number three, I put offering practical help. So, like I was saying before at the beginning, try and be really open and just listening and not really giving any judgment or help or anything like that. But as time goes on, offer them help. Like if they've booked their first appointment with, whether it's a doctor, a psychologist, a teacher, or anything, whatever the issue may be, offer them help. Like, hey, I'll drive you to the appointment. If they're talking about how they're stressing about it, how they're anxious, or maybe I won't go, be there for them and take them. You know what I mean? If they want to accept that, then that's great. That's really, really great because then you're helping them take that first step to help themselves to unpack this issue professionally. And number four, I said respecting their boundaries. So this is a really big one, especially if they aren't ready to talk. So like I said before with checking in regularly, if you message someone and they message back and they're like, "Stop, I don't want to talk about it. Stop hounding me, stop texting me." Leave it. Stop texting them. It wait until they've, gone through it. They will come back at some point and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I don't like to talk about it. I'm all good now. I appreciate you for reaching out." Don't try and push and push and push because what you're doing really is pushing them away from you. So if one day they really did need help, they'd probably be like, "Oh, I won't text her because if I tell her one thing, or if I tell him one thing, or if I tell them one thing, like they'll just keep going on and on and on. They'll keep texting me. I just want to talk about it once, but I know if I text them, they'll blow it up." So sometimes in these situations, we can feel helpless. It's happened to me. You've probably noticed it as well. But just being a calm, safe presence in someone's life is helping. Just for them to know you are there to help them whenever needed is really, really important. Okay, so now moving on to something that's a bit more practical. So, encouraging professional support. If you're really concerned or if their struggles are ongoing, it is okay to gently suggest that they might want to talk to a professional, but make sure it comes from a place of care, not pressure. Try something like, "Would you ever consider chatting to someone like a psychologist? I've heard it can be really helpful when things feel a bit heavy." Or, "You don't have to go through this alone. There are people trained to help, and I can even help you look into it if you want to." Remember, it is their choice, and if they say no the first time, you have planted the seed. So they might come back and think, "Actually, that was a good idea. I might do that." So if you are really concerned, and you don't have to directly step into, "Oh, you can go and see a psychologist." There are so many things online that you can direct them to. So if they are between the ages of 12 and 25, Headspace, you can direct them to Headspace. Headspace focuses on youth mental health problems and have workshops, have events, and there are hubs in pretty much every city in Australia. I know they've got around like 162 hubs around Australia, which is amazing. So hopefully one will be near you. And secondly, maybe you want to do some research yourself, search up, online anonymous platforms for mental health help, or, an online psychologist if they don't want to go in. Sometimes the online ones can be a little bit cheaper. Things like that. Right, so you don't necessarily have to be like, "Okay, let's book you in. We're booking you in. We're booking you into a psychologist. We need to go." Just do it softly. Just be like, "Hey, even if you bring it up like this, like, hey, I actually came across this ad on TikTok the other day, um, and I'll use reach out as an example. I came across this ad on TikTok the other day. It was Reach Out Australia. They actually have an online anonymous forum where people actually post their struggles, and they have trained mentors to come on there and reply. And it's like a Instagram page where it's fully anonymous. You post your struggle, and loads of people comment and help you out. Like that might be really good if you want to get some more feedback on your situation, or if you want to get it off your chest more, things like that. Bringing it up in that way will make it much easier for them and more appealing to do that rather than saying, "Okay, let's go and sit down with a psychologist one on one in a clinical setting," which might feel a bit too forward or a bit too confronting. All right, now, and this is probably the most important tip, is taking care of yourself. So, if you're supporting someone who's struggling, it's really easy to forget about your own needs, but compassion fatigue is real. Again, you yourself need to be looked after before you can help anyone else. If you are struggling with something, you're not going to be that much help to someone else. You might think you are, but you might not be. So make sure you're also setting your own boundaries. So if the person you reached out to and they're really grateful to talk to you about it and they want to talk to you about it all the time, they're calling you 5 times a night, everything, you need to set your boundaries. And just a simple text or just a simple call and say, hey, I really appreciate you confiding and in me about this, and I am grateful that I can help you with this, and I would love to help you with this. But after, 6 o'clock or after 7 p.m., it's really my wind down time, so I really can't hop on the phone with you and talk about it because it just doesn't fit into my schedule or something like that. And something something that the other person, and the other person might take it like, oh, okay, maybe I'm too much, maybe I'm this. And again, try to tell them, it's not that it's too much, it's just that I need time for myself as well. I'm more than happy to help you from, the whole day up to 6 p.m. But after 6 p.m., I really need my wind down time and alone time. The second thing would be is checking in with your own mental health. So it's all well and good to be helping everybody else with their mental health struggles, but sometimes carrying all of that load, especially if you're carrying multiple people's load, it can affect your own mental health. So really, it really comes hand in hand with setting boundaries. If you set boundaries, you'll have more time to really think about your mental health if it is affecting your mental health. And if it is, then maybe take a step back from it, try some exercises, meditation, mindfulness, even reach out for your own help on some of those online forums and really think about yourself first. I know we all would rather help someone else, even if we're feeling down. We're like, no, but we can still help our friend. Trust me, in the long run, you are just hurting yourself. And sometimes you're not in the right headspace to be giving advice if you're not feeling too great yourself. So, like I always like to say, you can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, so make sure your cup is full before you pour into someone else's. Alrighty, so we're gonna finish up with two listener questions. So I got these are two questions that quite a few people asked on my Instagram polls. So number one is, how can you support a sibling without it feeling forced or uncomfortable? So this is a great question, and I really wanted to include this because loads of people would be going through this. Everyone with a sibling comes to a point where it's like, oh, okay, I can notice something is going on. Should I bring it up? Should I not bring it up? So it's like, how can I support my sibling without it feeling forced or making them feel uncomfortable? This is such a good one, especially because sibling relationships can be so complex. The key is to be subtle and consistent and, be consistently there to support them. Not a big emotional sit down if it doesn't suit your dynamic. So some families are like that and you can all sit down and have a big, really emotional chat, and that's really, really great. If that works for you, that's perfect. But if your sibling is someone who doesn't really talk about it or is really quite closed off, maybe the best way is to be subtle and just to consistently be there. So, some ideas would be like spending time with them doing something they enjoy. So, like shared activities do naturally build connection. So, if you guys like to do bowling, go bowling. If you want to do a paint and sip class, if you want to shop, if you want to play soccer, if you want to paint or draw or run or go to the gym, anything that you might like to do together, do it and try to do it more regularly. The more times you do things together, it will naturally, like I said before, build a connection, and they might open up and start telling you things that they might be going through or that they might be feeling in their day-to-day life. Secondly, I would say try to create a safe space through presence and not pressure. So, for example, chatting in the car or during a walk or from one of those activities that I mentioned before. When eye contact isn't front and center, it can feel more comfortable than a face to face convo. So, sometimes a face to face convo can feel really formal and be like, okay, I'm looking this person in the eye and I need to talk and they're going to ask me questions and I need to answer. Am I answering properly? If I say this, will they think something different? Blah, 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 blah. Sometimes when you're just walking, I don't know if you've noticed it, I've noticed it as well. When I go to on walks with my friends, my boyfriend, whatever, my parents, I feel like I talk way more to them. I talk all the time. I'm walking and I'm like blah 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 blah, and they're like blah 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 blah, and we always have really good, meaningful conversations. Whenever I'm on a walk, that's always happened. I don't know if that's only me, but I definitely recommend while you're doing an activity, have a chat. Because you're focusing on the activity, you're not really focusing on the conversation. So the person might feel more comfortable to be like, okay, I can say this because they're not paying that much attention to it. Like they'll hear it, but they're not going to stop and be like, oh, what? So that's another tip as well. And thirdly, I'm saying like send a quick check in text. So even if you do live with your sibling or don't live with your sibling, a little text, like I said before, can be beneficial, especially if you don't want to pick up the phone and be like, hey, how are you feeling today? They might be like, oh, come on, mate. Like, I told you I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it. So just a text like, hey, just thinking of you. Let me know if you want to hang out or need anything. You know what I mean? It's subtle enough to be like, hey, I'm at the shop, so you need anything? And then you can go over and like start chatting. But yeah, and finally, sometimes the best support is just being consistent. They might not open up right away, but knowing you're there matters more than you realize. Because if they do get to a point where they really, really, really need help, hopefully they'll think, you know what? My brother, my sister, my sibling has been there and has always been there. So I'm just going to go into their room, text them, call them, and just see what's up. Alrighty, the second listener question was, are there any support groups people can attend and what support groups are there around? So, absolutely, there's definitely support groups around, and I love that this was asked because seeking group support can be such a powerful step. Sometimes, especially talking to someone close to you, you might not want to open up fully because you're like, they're going to look at me different, they're going to think this, they're always going to know about this. Whereas if you go to a place or join a club or join a community and talk to all different people, you might be more open to talking more freely because these people don't know me. I can say what I want. We're all kind of going through similar things, etc., etc. So, these are a few options. So, this is for Australia. So, I'm sorry if anybody's listening outside of Australia. So, number one, I put Headspace. So, Headspace offers in person and online group programs for young people and their families, and it also offers education. So, that's a really good one. Beyond Blue runs online forums where people share their experiences anonymously. Grow Australia offers peer led mental health support groups across the country, which is really, really good because peer led, you do have someone like a counselor, like a mentor there to lead the discussion and they'll be relatable. They'll probably be young, around your age. You might feel more relatable to go and talk to them and get advice from them, get advice from the group. And last but definitely not least, Lifeline, which also provides a group support, especially for those dealing with grief or trauma. So if it is something a little bit more serious, Lifeline would be a great option as well. So if you're supporting someone else and need support yourself, there are groups for carers and family members too. So for example, Mind Australia and Sane programs offer programs for families of people with mental health conditions. So that's always good to know just in case it does get to that point and you want some help yourself. I will pop all of these on my Instagram. I will do a big post about this and have this on the last sort of carousel page with the links. So if you do, you can either write them down or it will be on my Instagram on Psych with Ioanna. So, thank you for joining me today. So, again, you don't need to be an expert to support someone who's struggling. You just need to care, listen, and show up with kindness. If this episode helped you or brought someone to mind, I'd love if you shared it. And if you ever have a question or topic you want me to talk about, send me a message on Instagram and keep up with the weekly post. So, thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.